We are officially on. Today, I'm not sure what we should put the official title of this session, because it's going to be more of a Hakachainik session than
I called it
Talmudic
NWO, meaning Talmudic New World Order.
Uh-oh.
They're going to...
Anyways, we're going to be speaking today a little bit about Pesach. We are coming towards Pesach. As a matter of fact, for those viewers out there who do not know at the moment, we are actually going on break. So we have today and tomorrow, then we go on break for an entire month, the whole month of Nisan. The month of Nisan, we have a break, and then we start again in Iyar. Yes, unlike the American system where usually Jewish schools will have like a week and a half for Pesach, a week and a half for Sukkot, a little bit here and there, and then they'll have like 2.5 months out in the summer. In the Israeli system, we basically learn throughout the entire summer. We have about a 2.5 week break in the summer, but we have the whole Nisan and the whole Tishrei off. Yes, the whole Elul we're on the whole Elul. We basically break Tishrei, Nisan, and we have like a 2-week break in the summer. From Tisha B'av, maybe a little bit, maybe like a 3-week break. From Tisha B'av until Elul, we have off.
2 months less than Chutzah.
Not really. If you count the amount, we have a little.
They get 3.5 months, or if they get 3 months, 2 weeks for Hanukkah. 2 weeks for Pesach, 2 weeks for Sukkot.
Who gives 2 weeks for Hanukkah? What yeshiva give 2 weeks for Hanukkah?
Not 2, a week. No,
what are you talking about? When I was in yeshiva, they gave us like 3 days.
4 days. Yeah, so not Hanukkah. So yes, we get a month.
Anyways,
there, you get 3 months there.
Good.
4 months. We get
Very nice.
Is my son going to get holiday break during
in there, for what? What does he do? Oh no, they don't take a break in that. That's one of the things that you don't get a break. You're in the army. You have your gun. You got to shoot. So, anyways, yeah, he's in God.
Sometimes some serious.
So he doesn't. You don't keep track of him. Okay. What?
I keep resharing by the way, I'm sharing the streams to your intellectual spirituality group.
Yeah.
Facebook group.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if it's going through. Anyway.
It might not be going through. Okay, I have to allow it. Anyways, it doesn't go in automatically. Don't put it to that group, because that one I have to actually allow. Put it on the other ones. Anyways, we have Pesach coming up, and we don't sleep in my class. Get your head off the table, man. What? Yeah, well, he's afraid of ruining his computer here. Anyways, so Pesach is coming up. Pesach is actually the first holiday ever on the Jewish calendar that was ever created, because Pesach is actually the story of the Exodus of Egypt. There is nothing in Judaism that celebrates something prior to the Exodus of Egypt. As a matter of fact, recently I was having a discussion with a Muslim guy who was asking me, what about, they have this holiday where Abraham sacrificed his son, who for some reason they decided it was Ishmael, whereas the Torah clearly says it was Yitzchak. I'm not sure how years after the story decided that they knew a better version, but they revised it. But they came around 100 years later and said, no, we know the real story, right?
Yeah.
Right. That's one of the signs of a true con artist. Yeah. Is when they they twist the story so badly, and they don't, and they kind of
when the Prophet Muhammad rode a unicorn into space and then broke the moon in two, he broke the moon out the truth.
Oh, okay. And when he broke the moon into half.
Yeah.
And that's why the moon looks half. At least half the month, right?
But even though
see, half the month, the moon looks half. And it must be that's what. Anyways.
Once a month they come back together.
Anyways, let's deal with the facts on the ground. The first holiday was Passover. Okay, the first time they celebrated Pesach was Yochanan Baruch. What was the first time they celebrated Pesach? What was the first time the Jewish people celebrated Passover? Oh, brilliant. I love asking this question because many people tell me the year after the Jews left Egypt.
No.
Wrong.
And
They actually had the first celebration of Passover the night before they left Egypt.
it was good.
As a matter of fact, God commanded the Jewish people to take a sheep, to tie it to their bed. Get your hands off my table. No, you put your hands there, and then you put your head there. No, so
How do you
get your hand get off the table.
How do you sleep for 3 nights when you hear all night?
What do you think? The sheep don't sleep either. Sheep also sleep. You know that? You think the sheep are sleep? I don't know which fairy tale they taught you as a kid, but sheep don't go bah a whole day and a whole night. Every once in a while, you get them nervous. They go bah, yeah, shkoyach. Or if there's something happens, they don't sit there a whole day bah bah. Right? I don't know. You watch too many movies.
I mean, I don't think you've been around before then.
I've actually have been around a lot of sheep. I lived in New Zealand.
Right.
Okay, and in New Zealand there were 20 million sheep. You drive down the road, right, and you see stealing. It belongs to people. What are you talking about? Huh?
You drive down the road and a lamb chop falls on your windshield.
Yeah, of course. But as a matter of fact, you go to a sheep farm, you don't hear bah bah. You don't see that, huh? I don't know. I don't remember. Didn't pay that much attention. But I love your questions. Like
It's very.
we're like saying one thing and you ask the question like something completely different. Do they snore? We're talking about the sheep making noises.
You saw more sheep than anyone else. I know.
Huh?
You saw thousands of sheep.
I saw tens of thousands of sheep when I was in New Zealand.
So many sheep that you trip it over lamb chops.
As a matter of fact, one time I was driving from Dunedin to Queenstown, and there's two ways of doing it. There's one kind of like a straight road, but it's much longer, or there's like a shortcut, but you kind of like go in mountains, like you're gonna going like all over on the mountains, wiggy waggle. So I decided to go on the Wiggy Waggle Road. The Wiggy Waggle Road, it also has a lot of farms on either side.
Sheep crossings.
And I'm driving, and all of a sudden I see ahead of me that there is no road. The road just disappeared. And I'm like, I slowed down really quickly. What happened to the road? Right? There's like this white blanket on the road. I'm like, I don't want to drive on somebody's white blanket. So I slowly approached there, and there was a guy crossing. He was a shepherd crossing sheep. It must have been at least 1,000 sheep. It took like 5 minutes. I'm sitting just watching. They're just walking and walking and walking and walking and walking and walking. This huge area of sheep. Anyways, I don't know what we're talking about. Sheep. We're talking about Passover.
Yeah,
Moses tells the Jews, listen for a second, man. I think you should give the shir. You like talking so much, you should sit here and give the shir. If not, I don't know if you want. I let you. I don't mind. Moshe told the Jewish people 4 days before they got let out of Egypt, he said in 4 days, God is going to kill the firstborn of all the firstborns of Egypt. And therefore, on the night that this is going to happen, you should be celebrating. You should be celebrating your freedom before you were free, not after you were free, but before you were free. So the Jewish people celebrated the freedom from Egypt before they were free. Right? That's an idea. Listen, you got to celebrate before it actually happens. All right? But that's what God did. Huh? Anyways, the Jewish people had a Seder. They actually ate matzah. You'd say, the whole point of eating matzah was because when the Jews left Egypt, they didn't have enough time to make their matzah chametz. Yeah, well, guess what? The night before, they were already eating matzah. Why were they eating matzah the night before? Because that's what God told them to do. God told them to eat matzah. So they were eating matzah the night before they left Egypt, right? And then they were let out of Egypt, Baruch Hashem, etc. And from then on, the New World Order came out. Because they tell me the New World Order, right? And NWO, right?
Yeah.
Talmudic, that's what it says here, no?
Talmudic New World Order.
The Talmudic New World Order, that's what we're supposed to be speaking about today. I don't know why somebody put that in the comments or in the title. It wasn't me. I'm innocent. I never agreed to speak about the New World Order. But Mashiach is a New World Order, the one world order. the Jewish people always believed in a one world order because there's one God, one world. However, that order doesn't necessarily have to be controlled by a single person or a single entity, which is what a lot of people fear and what a lot of people try to make happen. As a matter of fact, for millennia, who tried to force their world order on the rest of us. Yes. There were conquerors and politicians, and today they're bureaucrats.
And, Arabs.
It used to be that that people would come straight in your face and say, "Listen, I'm your boss. You got to listen to me. Otherwise, you're dead." That's it. And they used to come with a big army, and they used to say, "Listen, you listen to me, or you're dead." Right? And some of them succeeded more than others, and that was that. Right? Then the humanity came up with this idea called democracy. And in democracy, no, I don't have to listen to you. I only have to listen to you is if I chose you or if majority of the people chose you. And even then, 4 years later, we're going to replace you with somebody else, or we could replace you with somebody else if we want. Right? And so therefore, there was somewhat of accountability between the human being or between the boss and between the subjects. Right? This actually was very successful for a couple of years. And today, the people who want to enforce their opinion and their way on other people, they found all sorts of scams and cons to basically take away our personal freedoms in using various different tactics that don't seem to be breaking the democratic. They don't. Again, if they came out and said we're breaking the democratic structure, no one would follow them, right? And everybody would be destroyed. They would be kicked out. That's it. Bye. Have a good day, right? However, what they argue is that they actually argue that they're defending the democratic structure by destroying it, right? They need to destroy the democratic structure in order to protect the democratic structure, which is an evil that is very, very difficult, and many people have a hard time to realize this. Right? We have today a lot of, people that are in positions, say, for example, of courts, bureaucrats, right? Anybody that has a government position that they were not elected to and that the people do not have direct control over, any of these people that act against the interests of the rest of the people are, in fact, tyrannical dictators in their area, whatever they're doing, right? And unfortunately, over time, what happened was the humans by nature, they like controlling people, especially men, right? Sometimes women too. But the controlling women are worse than the controlling men. But usually the men like to control more than women. But when you have a woman that breaks that stereotype and she likes controlling, she's nuts. Forget about it, right?
It's very descriptive.
Anyways, but the fact is that people of the world must understand that our civil liberties are currently gone. They don't exist anymore. We do not have civil liberties. We do not have the right to vote out the government because the government itself is already tyrannical. Some people say, if the government's going to become tyrannical, it's already tyrannical. The very fact that a person who has a government position, I don't care if you call yourself a judge, I don't care if you call yourself a bureaucrat, if no one elected you to be there, and you are fighting elected officials who were chosen by the people to be there, you, in fact, whoever that is, whatever position you are in fact, a tyrannical dictator in that area of what you're dealing with, right? It could be a policeman, it could be a somebody in the back office of something, it could be a judge. We have a lot, unfortunately, today, a lot. And if anybody thinks that we live in a free world, think again. You know why you think you're in a free world? Because you're so heavily controlled by outside influence that those outside influences that already control you and that already took away and stole your civil liberties, those very elements of society are trying to tell you that you're free, to convince you that you're free, because then you have to fight against. democracy as it was originally created no longer exists in any country that I know of currently, and it's been systematically and slowly destroyed by people that used positions that are not accountable to government, and that very often they fight the elected officials, right? And they try to enforce their opinion on people who are elected. Now, if somebody's elected, I don't like politicians, because very often a politician will lie to get elected, right? Now, if a politician lies to get elected, then you can say, as a judge, as whatever it is, you can say, listen, this politician is a scam. So therefore, maybe you're going to fight the politician in order to ensure that the politician does what they were elected to do. However, if a politician is actually doing what they advertised when they were elected, which today there are a few of those guys, right? If they actually came to they campaigned, if a politician campaigns for a particular platform, and they're actually implementing the platform that they campaigned for, anyone that stands in their way is a tyrannical dictator fighting democracy. That's it. I don't care who it is. I don't care if you call yourself a judge. I don't care if you call yourself a smudge. I don't care if you call yourself a bureaucrat or a Democrat, or I don't care what you call yourself. But anybody that goes against what was clearly chosen by the people is a tyrannical dictator, or fighting to reinstate tyrannical dictatorship. This guy doesn't see. I kicked this guy out. Now I can continue this shit. This guy's like, why are you yelling at me so much? What do you do so much? It's dictatorship. Anyways, I don't know how we got into that, but it's true. It's a very true fact. It's a very sorry fact. And Yechanan Baruch knows this from living in Australia during COVID. That
I had the background on Capitol Hill.
Huh? So you saw all the people fighting dictators, fighting democracy.
No, fighting to be the dictator.
No. So, what you even decades ago, what you describe as democracy, from a personal point of view, because I was a politically hired person.
Yeah.
Push comes to shove after several years. Some very famous senior politicians want to force me, against my will, to work on Shabbos.
Right.
So I say, no.
Jewish?
No. Bye.
Right.
Wow.
Well, that's fair. If you whatever, you could leave. You had the permission to leave. But what about the rest? What about the rest of the countries that or what about the very politicians who are like, listen, the public voted me to do A, and I'm actually doing A, and I have to fight with all these unaccountable bureaucrats and unaccountable people that for some reason put themselves in the position. By the way, I'll give you an example. A simple example is the European Union. The European Union, they pretty much control Europe. They're almost like a central government of Europe. They're not elected, and not only are they not elected, the countries that appointed them to begin with did not actually hire them to control them. They came in and said, let's make a deal. We're going to have a trade deal. You're going to do this. I'm going to do that. Before you knew it, they dug into the language. They hid into the language of these deals that they cut with the countries. They hid into these language all sorts of powers that they have. And now all of a sudden they become the rulers, an unelected group of people. Right? Again, it's one thing if the European Union would stand up and say, you know what, everybody under the European Union gets to vote for the president. Fine. But they don't do that.
No.
In other words, they found a way to establish a dictatorship, unaccountable to the people. And then you know what the craziest thing is? The craziest thing is that people today still think that there's liberty. I'm like, hello. Knock. There's no liberty. There's no democracy. The people do not rule the country. It doesn't exist. It's a lie, right? They have a limited power. What I would suggest in most democracies, the elected officials, they have the power. They almost have the power of protest. And by the way, in Rome, they had this also. They had elected officials, but then they had the dictator.
Right.
So the dictator did whatever he wanted. The elected officials were there to encourage the dictator to do what the people want, right? And if the dictator accepted what the people wanted, then they would do it. If they didn't accept it, they didn't.
What
Huh?
dictator?
Huh?
What dictator?
Again, the Senate was under a dictator.
Yes.
Again, there was a Senate. They had the Senate, which was elected, but then they had a dictator, and the dictator basically did whatever they want with this. It almost like the Senate was there to encourage, and if you want to call it, to lobby for what the public wanted. And today, that is what democracy is in every single country that I know that's actually a democracy. That's actually what's going on today, is that the publicly elected officials are there to encourage the government to do what the people want.
Wow.
And the government could decide whether or not they actually accept that or not. And who's the government? I don't call today in Israel, they call the government the Knesset. Government is not the Knesset. The government is the Supreme Court of Israel is the government of Israel. They are the government. They are the governing power. And they have there is nothing that anybody can do or say to hold them accountable for their actions. Okay. And I've asked people, I've asked a lefty, you're telling me, oh, we need the Supreme Court to keep together democracy. I'm saying, okay, so let's just say the Supreme Court was doing against your opinion. How exactly could you take them down legally? The answer is zero. There is no way to take down doesn't exist. In other words, they are the government, and they should be held responsible for everything that happens in Israel because they are the ones making the decisions. The Knesset government is it's not symbolic. They're there to, again, they kind of try to do what the public wants, and if the Supreme Court decides they accept it, yes, then they're good. If not, not. That's it. Meaning it's just like in Rome, where the Senate, the people's representatives are there essentially to encourage the government to do what's right. That's exactly what's happening today in Israel. In America, it's like half, right? Hence why you have a lot of what the government today in America is doing is being stopped by courts, by other things, etc. And of course, the people arguing for them say, oh, what do you mean the rule of law, the rule of law, the rule of law? Okay, if that's the rule of law, how is it rule of law? How is it that these people decide what is rule and what's not rule? Are they really, is there a way to take a judge to court for misrepresenting his position? And the answer is no. There is no, even in America. What you could do is you can fight all the way to the highest court, and the highest court can overthrow a lower court, right? And technically the highest court, that's why in America there still is a little bit of a ray of democracy in America, because technically the president could put out their thing. They could potentially legally.
We've had situations where on appeal, let's say Trump succeeds,
Right.
But usually on appeal they give instructions to the lower court to do X, Y, and Z, and then the lower court says, I refuse to obey the directive of the appeal court.
Yeah, and there's no accountability.
Right.
There's no accountability.
Exactly.
Again, if you ask me, today's the destruction of democracy. Anybody that wants to really fight and ensure that democracy stands, there's two major problems. One is the court system itself. In all countries, I'm not singling out Israel. In all countries, the court needs to have somewhat of accountability to the people. If they're not accountable to the people in some way or another, I'm not saying, again, maybe some people say, yeah, but what's one of the arguments is what's going to stop the tyranny of the majority? So first, I have two answers to that question.
Democracy is the tyranny of the majority.
Again, there's an argument. What about the tyranny? And they say that the courts are really there to prevent the tyranny of the majority. There's two answers to that question. Number one, could you give me a single instance where majority actually pushed a tyrannical move?
Nazi Germany.
That's actually not true.
The majority.
That's not true.
They elected them.
So again, that is an argument. The argument is Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany, they did elect the Nazi Party.
Yes.
However, the Nazi Party themselves did not really implement any of their horrible, they basically took back the power. They basically suspended democracy. And until they suspended democracy, they didn't do anything. You know why? Because they were afraid. Even when the majority wanted to be tyrannical, they were always afraid of what's going to happen. If we're too tyrannical, we're going to lose power, right? Because so if you look at history, there was I've yet to find an example where majority actually implemented a tyrannical move. Give me one example. Anybody is online, you could give me an example here in the things. Give me one example. First of all, there's no sign of Sodom and Gomorrah, as they say, Sodom and Gomorrah. There's no historical proof that was a democracy. Again, in history, there is no instance that I can think of that there was a democracy and that the democratically elected officials acted in accordance with a platform. I've never seen such a thing, and there were instances like Nazi Germany, but they first had to take off the burden of democracy before they could actually do their horrible acts. And Nazi Germany, it was not until Hitler basically suspended elections. Until he did that, he didn't do any of the horrible things, right? Again, there was a lot of rhetoric. He spoke a lot against the Jews, but he never actually did. He never actually implemented anything until he threw off the yoke of democracy. Until he did. So what's that?
Democracy can create something that's not democracy.
It's the people. The people. Again, the fact is, democracy is the people. Right. And democracy is accountable to their actions. Because if a government does something stupid, so then it will cause a stupid result, and people will back away from them, right? That is the nature. There's a nature to democracy, right? And that's what's been happening. If you look at all democratic places, it's always the democratically elected people that have. The point is they have the yoke of the public. They know they're going to be judged. Again, the very fact that they know that they're being judged by the public prevents them from doing horrible things, right? It's only when they know that they can't be judged by the public, and that's a key to human. It's a key to human nature. If a human nature knows that they're not accountable to the public, they will act against the interests of the public, and that is going to happen. It happens all the time.
Control the press.
Yeah. So as soon as a person in power feels that they're not accountable to the general public, they will act against the interest of the general public.
Unless they're a Torah Jew.
Even if they're a Torah Jew.
I haven't seen it.
Again, in some cases we can hold ourselves back, etc. Right. There needs to be some level of accountability. This is very important, right? And by the way, what I tell people that argue, we need independent courts. It's one of the stupidest arguments I've ever heard. We need independent courts. In other words, we need a court that is not accountable to the public at all. And that's the way to make justice. Knock, knock. So let me ask in Israel, go ask an Israeli, courts are good. Okay, what about the international court, right? The international court that recently wants to put a bunch of Israelis in jail. Even the crazy thing is, even the Supreme Court made a statement saying that that this independent court had no right to say what they said. Again, the Supreme Court of Israel, that basically says that they're not accountable to anybody, says that they're not accountable to somebody else's that's not accountable. So make up your mind. If a lack of accountability means that you have the right to impose justice, well, then they have the right to impose justice. Right? And if they don't have the right to impose justice as an independent court, then what right does any? Okay, so the very fact that you clearly see with your own eyes, and I think everybody from every side of the aisle, I think every single person today living in a democracy knows this for a fact, that there were times where they felt that an independent court, right? And everybody admits that. So to accept a precedence that an independent court that has zero accountability to the public is an asset to democracy is really a stupidity. Anybody that thinks that needs to change their brains. Okay, they need to wash their brains. They need to get brainwashed, right? The stupid people, the sugarness, right? Anybody that thinks that an independent court that has zero accountability to anybody other than themselves is a sincere and effective way to cause justice is an idiot. They're an idiot.
80 million Americans.
Huh?
80 million Americans
Yeah.
are convinced
That what?
that the justice system right now is speaking the truth.
Yeah.
And everything I hear.
The Supreme Court comes out and says no, and then they're going to switch, right? So let's take America, for example. In America, the Supreme Court, like 20, 30 years ago, they ruled that a person has a human right to cut their baby out of their belly, right? Even at a late stage of pregnancy, they have a human right. Human right means that this is like, whoa, this is like a life or death human right, basic human right, right? And guess what? The exact same court, just by similar people, and not by switching, it just so happened to be she dropped dead. The lady that made it dropped dead, and then they switched her for somebody else, and all of a sudden this human right disappeared. Make up your mind. This is something of ultimate essential value. If you're telling me, oh, I believe in human rights, well, guess what? The court can't figure out what human rights are. They can't figure it out. They can't figure it out, right? So in other words, you can clearly see, no matter which side of the aisle you're from, no matter what you believe, you can see that independent courts are not something that maintains justice for humanity. They're not. As a matter of fact, they cause more problems than they fix. Right? If any of you, I don't know if any of you have ever had to deal with actual courts. I've dealt with courts, both myself and as a Ton Rabbani, as a rabbinic attorney, I've dealt with the Beis Din over here, and I can tell you that unaccountable courts are horrible, and they for every excuse not to make rules, right? They try to push off every case as much as they could, which causes immense pain to the people going through it, right? And there's nothing to do to fix it because there's no one that's allowed to fix it because they're happy. They get to do nothing. They get to get paid for it. And they get to sit there on their chairs getting paid nice salaries from the government. No one could fire them, and they don't have to do their job because no one could fire them. And therefore, they'll do their job just enough that they can excuse them. And anybody that's ever dealt with the secular court knows that that's exactly what judges do today. They do whatever they need to do to make it look as if they're doing their job, right? And if you really, really push them, I know a case in America, a divorce case, 15 years, not resolved. Like, hello, knock, knock. It doesn't take 15 years to resolve a case, okay? But the judge keep on and push it off for this reason, push it off for that reason. That's it. And you know what? These people, they want to resolve their issue, but they cannot resolve their issue. You know why? Because these judges, not only are they pushing it off 15 years, but they're standing in the way because no other court has the authority to do anything about it. Right? And guess what? When people see the problem, there's no way we can fix it. That's right. Because there's no way we can elect somebody that could fix it. Because if you elect somebody, they can't fix it because they're not allowed to. So basically, you have this massive cancer of a problem in society, right? That's growing and growing and getting worse and worse over time. And there's no way to fix the problem. Why? Because people are too stupid to realize what the military coup is the only thing, whatever it is.
It's sad. That's horrible.
It's sad. It's sad. Huh? So first of all, let me explain to you something. Even though the Jewish people, we do believe in a structure of Malchus, which is kingship. I've actually said this, by the way. The best form of government, if you look around the world, the best form of government is a single dictator. And everybody, 100%. However, it could also be the worst form of government. What does it depend on? Who it is, right? If you have a dictator that's smart and that is motivated for the people, they're actually selfless people. They are actually gonna create an awesome life for the people that they're doing. And the fact is, you do see this around the world. Go to, say, for example, Morocco. Morocco is not the richest country in the world, but relatively peaceful, right? If I want, I can visit there. If you want, you can visit there. As a Jew, I could go in and visit there. As a matter of fact, I heard that if a Jew comes to Morocco, because the Moroccan government knows that there's Muslims that hate Jews, right? So if a Jew comes, they actually appoint a security guard to go with him wherever you go. You're going touring, you're going driving around the country. If you're a visible Jew, you have a government representative going with you, so no one should harm you, right? Yeah. Take for example the United Arab Emirates. Even though it's not quite a single dictatorship, but it's kind of like a split up into dictatorships. They have one of the most successfully growing countries in the world. Super successful. Look at Singapore as a dictatorship. They have one of the best places. People want to go there for business. Why? Because they have a clear system and it works, right? So in Judaism, yes, we do believe in a dictatorship. However, it's got to be the right person, and it's not easy to figure out who the right person is. And what I would suggest is that if you ask me from a Jewish perspective today, I think democracy is really the way to go. Have somebody that can be appointed by God as the God-given dictator over the people of Israel. Until that point comes, I think democracy is the right way. But exactly, we need to achieve democracy, and we need people to get up and fight for democracy, right? Because in the past there were massive battles and wars for democracy, but then once it was established, people were like, okay, fine. But people don't realize that it still requires fights. I hope it doesn't have to require actual people to die, God forbid, but it definitely requires fighting, protesting, and calling the right people out in order to make drastic change to the current system, to reestablish the power of the people. Because today the people do not have the power. Not in Israel, not in America, and not in many other. I would say the whole European Union. The people do not have the power. Period. Yeah. They don't have the power. Convince yourself whatever the hell you want. You don't have the power. So
listen to this. Last night, after you made this statement,
this guy doesn't like democracy. Well, I don't know what he's.
After you made this statement,
yeah, which statement?
Along these lines. The highest court in Israel. Had a certain sensitivity of what political balance is in Israel. And trends, and as a result, they took, at least in one relevant situation, a compromised position on the judgment.
Compromised position. I don't know what that means.
So I'll give you an example. There's a whole fight because the left wants X as the head of the Shabbat.
Right.
But Netanyahu fired them.
Right.
And the High Court says, no, you can't fire and hire.
In other words, they're unaccountable people. There's people working for the government that have zero accountability to the elected officials.
So the government sues in the High Court. What do they say? In the meantime, you have complete flexibility, Netanyahu, to interview and finalize a replacement for the current head of Shabbat. See, they're throwing crumbs to us. Right?
In other words, they're realizing that as the dictators of Israel, they are. In other words, they're. And by the way, a lot of dictators did the same thing. When they see the people's representatives very strongly, so they kind of give them a little bit enough that they can maintain their power without the public going after them. Because if the elected officials, they basically are representing what the people want, and if you don't do what the people want, it can lead to a civil war. So in order to prevent the civil war, they try to kind of like compromise, almost like the ones that have the power over the country. And by the way, that they need to be held accountable for everything that happens in the country. We cannot hold Netanyahu or any of the elected officials accountable for not for October 7, not for the Six-Day War, Yom Kippur War. We cannot really hold them accountable. Why? Because they don't have the ultimate decision, right? And the fact is that Netanyahu had many strategies that he tried to implement that were thrown down, right? So how do you know? Maybe if he was given the right to implement his maybe October 7 wouldn't have happened. If he was able to hire and fire the Shabbat, right? Maybe October 7 wouldn't have happened. Maybe the very fact that the Shabbat leader knew that he could be fired, he himself, the same guy, would have actually performed better because he would know he's under threat of being fired, right? And therefore, the very fact that these people, the very fact that the representatives of the people do not have the ultimate power, the people need to start holding responsibility to the actual people in power. The people that are making the real decisions need to really hold responsibility for what happened, right? I can't blame anybody any elected official for what happened on October 7th. It's 100% the fault of the bureaucrats, the leaders, the generals, the Shabak, the Mossad, whoever they are. They had a job. They're being paid for the job. They have zero accountability to the elected officials. Therefore, they need to be held responsible, not the elected officials. Now, if the elected official had free reign and can choose who is the people, then I could blame the elected official. You hired the wrong guy. Then I could blame them. But if they don't have the power, then how could I blame them? I have to blame the people that have the power. With power comes responsibility, right? If you're the one that has the power to make a difference, then you are the one that I can hold responsible. I can't hold you responsible for something that you don't have the power over.
Well, you have to have
right? If you do not have the responsibility, if you don't have the power, you don't have the responsibility. If you have the power, you have the responsibility.
I think
Right?
North Korea has it right.
North Korea, anyways. Yeah. Anyways.
At least North Korea.
Why? What does this have to do with the Talmud? Nothing. Nothing. Ruve sitting here is like, this is very entertaining, but it's not.
I'll tell you what has to do with the Talmud.
What does it have to do with the Talmud?
All the big anti-Semites think, especially the ones who are ADI. Okay, never mind.
This was learning something. Learn something. I don't know. What to do in response? Yeah. Pray to God.
And even the Jewish dictator is answerable to Sanhedrin, to the Nevi'im, right?
No.
It depends what. There is some limited power that other people have over the
kings, the whole thing of Allah.
again. We had bad kings too. Yeah. We have bad kings right now too. You know what? We have kings in Israel too. We have rulers of Israel. Right now there's rulers of Israel. There's 15, I think 15 of them. What is it called?
You can't 15.
Huh? How many are there? It's 15.
It's not
The
kings.
Supreme Court.
The supreme dictators.
The number one supreme dictator now has
You know,
a big
Brazil-
scandal brewing under his seat. A big scandal.
What?
He has a big scandal.
Again, there's no scandal with the supreme dictators. They do what they want. No one could stop them. That's it. There is nothing. There is nothing that could be done. Huh? There's nothing that could be done.
North Korea, it's
Right?
how it is.
Again, you never know. Maybe at some point the elected officials will pressure them enough. Hire me as a dictator. I'd be a dictator as well. If I rule the country, everything will be good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You wouldn't forget us?
Huh? Why would I forget you?
Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
How do you know? You tried it? No, I never tried it either. So if I try it and it corrupts me, I'll let you know.
Give me a phone call.
There was a very smart man who once said,
Yeah.
democracy is for the people and by the people.
Yeah.
The problem is that the people aren't retarded.
For the people, by the people, but the people don't know what they want. So
Trump clarified that anyone burns a Tesla,
yeah,
it is classified as
domestic terrorism.
It is domestic terrorism.
We'll see what happens, huh?
Yeah.
It is.
Tesla stock is skyrocketing.
Huh?
As a result, Tesla stock is recovering and skyrocketing.
Oh, why did it go down a lot?
Yeah, it crashed.
Oh yeah.
Nah, it
Why
was
not?
a little crazy.
Yeah. Anyways, we're gonna end there, and I encourage you to learn some Gemara, which you might actually get somewhere with that information. The information I give you it's very sad, but I mean, what could you do about it? It's a good question. What could you do about it?
At least we know. At least we have
Yeah,
cognizance.
but why should we know about something that we can't do anything
You
about?
shouldn't know about this.
Why should we know?
You shouldn't.
Huh? So we can pray to God. Pray to God.
Mashiach's also going to rule America.
Is he?
Yeah, the whole world.
Actually, it doesn't say anywhere that Mashiach is going to rule the world.
They're going to demand.
It's actually a very different narrative. Judaism does not have a narrative an all-controlling king, an all-influencing king, which means people will be influenced by him, but it's almost like voluntarily. People will voluntarily accept his advice. Correct. Not necessarily will he enforce his.
Pretty cool, actually.
Anyways, that's good. We had some very interesting questions and comments here. Full talk, even though it had nothing to do with the Gemara.
Maybe it is connected to Marx.
Maybe it is connected.
Maybe it's the Hindu.
Now you hear a Talmudic scholar speaking about modern stupidity.
No, it's also ancient. It's also so what happened.
What could you do?
Yes.
What happened in ancient Rome?
Who conquers them? The barbarian conquered them.
Yeah,
But what you described, is you have an elected Senate and
yeah,
a dictator.
right,
It's a brilliant system all over.
right. Well, I'll tell you, you know who did this best, by the way, in England. In England, officially, the King of England is a dictator. He really is.
Yeah.
However, they don't do anything about it.
Right. They don't act on it.
They don't act on it.
Right.
So I think that might actually be probably, something essential. Meaning that the dictators, they're kind of like, maybe in some extreme emergency situation. By the way, you should know that if, with all due respect to England,
Yes.
the very fact that the king has power and officially could cancel anything that they do, even though he never used it, but the very threat that it's there keeps them in
accountability.
it keeps them in check, because they know in the back of their minds that if they do something too horrible, they could be thrown out. So it's almost like they're gonna. It's very, very important. And again, thank God. I think that in England, I think that it's brilliant that the Queen. It's really Elizabeth. It's her fault, but in a good way. That it's her fault that she basically
Abdicated power.
she didn't abdicate power. She never abdicated power. She just never acted on the power that she had. And it's brilliant because by the way, you should know that the Prime Minister of England, I don't know if they do it with the King, but with Queen Elizabeth, I think there was something like once a week, the Prime Minister had to come to the Queen and report the state of what's going on in the country. Right? They had to report.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. No, again, so she wouldn't intervene in their decisions. As a matter of fact, one Prime Minister asked Queen Elizabeth, he once asked her to cancel the current government, and she refused. She said, no, she's not doing it. Right? And I think that that's brilliant because, it is a kind of like a silent threat in the background that if you mess up too bad, yet they kind of let you float. And I think that that's brilliant. That's a brilliant concept.
You know what we can do,
etc.
For each court decision. So what you really need to have accountability to the public is you have to have a transparent database where the public has some API or access point to see the judge's decisions in a way that can't be corrupted by anybody. Right. So actually, it's a use case for blockchain technology. Even better, it's an even better use case of blockchain than money. Yeah. Because same thing for voting in any way whatsoever. Yeah. And we already have some case where if a judge is really bad and their reputation gets bad enough, in America at least, in not the Supreme Court but lower courts, the judge can be voted out during an election, right? A system where
you can see it.
It's a central database blockchain where all the judges' decisions are there, and then people can vote to upvote or downvote judges based on their decisions, But that would require basically completely obliterating the entire federal government from a work and bureaucracy perspective, and rebooting the Constitution using something like that.
Yeah, we need a new constitution. We need a new constitution in Israel. We need a new constitution in America. Yeah, we need to revamp. We need to revamp society. We need to upgrade them because we're running on this old system that was created maybe 200 years ago, which unfortunately people have learned to manipulate in order to enforce their will on the people.
The framers had a distrust.
Who?
The framers of the U.S. Constitution had a distrust of the public will.
For good reason.
The longest debate in the Constitutional Convention
is
whether to tie the right to vote to landed whites. Why? They said if we give the vote to Shuteyam, to every American, it'll be a disaster over time. That's what happened.
They were right.
Yeah.
They saw it coming.
Yeah, but if you look at it, the truth is that even though I agree that society usually has a lot of stupid people in it, and they make stupid decisions. And very often politicians have learned to manipulate people. But I find that it has expiration date, and I think that that's also why the left. I think that why the left are having so much difficulty over the much. They've been awesome at people that they are
altruistic and compassionate.
correct. That they're altruistic. Well, I don't think there's an alternative. But I think that if you look historically, I think historically the public, even though the public could get manipulated 5, 10, 15, 20 years even, but eventually it comes out. Eventually it comes out, and people will realize who to vote for, who to not vote for. As a matter of fact, if you look throughout history, the biggest countries, the politicians, it came from non-elected bureaucrats and judges. The worst things that ever happened.
I'm convinced that Trump also cheated.
Could be. He's going doing something else. So, anyways, have a good day. We love you.